71! Razor, 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 razor!
Curly, will you just run the freaking play already? You're an embarrassment to cats.
Shut up, Kirby. Only on Halloween can I be a cat girl, a quarterback, and a sports announcer. Happy Halloween from all of us at TransPositions Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. This week, we're going to take a little bit of a murky, deep dive into what's behind the college protest crisis in college volleyball, specifically the Mountain West Conference and the continuing saga over San Jose State University and the teams who don't want to play them but won't tell you why. Underneath all the anti-trans hysteria, underneath all of the protest and the controversy, there's a lawsuit behind it. A lawsuit by the Independent Council on Women's Sports, or as I like to call them, Karens Against Women's Sports, because they don't really care about women's sports. They're just here for the transphobia. But this lawsuit is powering much of what you're seeing right now. And I'm pretty sure you've heard of the name of the lead plaintiff.
Riley Gaines, real American transphobe. Riley Gaines is there.
But of course Riley Gaines is a part of this. The former University of Kentucky All-American, best known for her anti-trans activism while trying to LARP as an athlete supporting athletes. We know her original story, 2022 NCAA Division I Swim Championship 200-yard freestyle final, tied for 5th with Leah Thomas. Yeah, that Leah Thomas. It's this moment that spurred her new career as a professional transphobe. And it powers this lawsuit and the glaring mandate if it succeeds. Not only does the lawsuit call for the NCAA to institute a total ban on transgender women in collegiate athletics, it calls for all results by trans women in NCAA competition to be retroactively scrubbed. That would take away Thomas's championship in 2022. It would take away CeCe Telfer's championship in 2019. It would also take away the recent successes of student athletes such as Lewis University tennis player, now graduated Brooklyn Ross, and Rochester Institute of Technology track athlete Sadie Schreiner. In sharp contrast to this present pettiness is what Gaines said 2 years ago in an interview with journalist Christina Konwarski. She said, quote, "I never felt uncomfortable around Leah or because of Leah." Now, fast forward 2 months later, Gaines was singing a very different tune.
It didn't make sense to me because obviously being at elite level, you know other elite swimmers, and so to see the name Leah Thomas, who was a senior, it just blew my mind. I wasn't sure who this person was. But it wasn't until an article came out on SwimSwam, I'm sure all the swimmers here are familiar with SwimSwam, that clarified that Leah was formerly Will Thomas, which was a male who swam for 3 years on the men's side at UPenn. I was shocked, but honestly, at this point, I didn't think too much of it in regards to still having my chance to win a national title, because I thought there's no way that the NCAA would allow Thomas to compete with the females. It honestly, truly didn't cross my mind that that would even be a possibility. But of course, I was proven very wrong. But I personally witness and feel the effect this competition had on not only myself, but all the female athletes at that meet. I know it's impossible to speak for everyone on that pool deck, but I can attest to the number of tears shed by 9th and 17th place finishers who miss being an All-American, which is, an incredible honor, by one place. The extreme discomfort in the locker room, the talk of anger and frustration from the girls who had worked so hard and sacrificed so much to get to this moment. And another thing I just realized over the last couple of days at a dinner with Kim and Marshy in attendance as well, we were actually in DC, and this was the day that the Biden administration rewrote Title IX and obviously redefined sex to mean gender identity. But in regards to the locker room situation, it is now sexual assault to refer to a transgender swimmer by the pronouns they don't go by. But it is not sexual assault for Leah, who has different parts than everyone else at that meet, to be in our locker room.
Gaines has links to a number of right-wing groups, and last year, the Riley Gaines Foundation was organized under the umbrella of the Leadership Institute, a conservative anti-LGBTQ think tank. She's also an ambassador to the Independent Women's Forum and the Concerned Women for America, both conservative anti-LGBTQ organizations. Gaines has spent part of 2024 with the group she's affiliated with on a campaign to harass high school and even middle school transgender girls who just want to compete in sport with their friends. And they've been staging protests, harassing families, and emboldening others to do the same. Case in point, the 2024 Oregon High School Track and Field Championships, when Aiden Gallagher, a trans girl who won a title, got booed.
Aiden Gallagher.
She's even got a Republican candidate for governor in West Virginia to say the following about a 13-year-old trans girl in West Virginia.
You have people, this came up in Bridgeport recently, that someone is doing a shot put. I praised the little girls who walked off and didn't compete because they have to face a male. You don't want little girls to be facing hulking males in the locker rooms.
Now, during the 2022 election cycle, Gaines was in demand on the campaign trail. She even did ads for a number of candidates. Most of them lost. She's even made her opinions known on issues beyond sports in setting up for 2024.
I've always been my whole life, like I would say before being conservative, I've always been a Christian. And so my values as a Christian align more conservative. But what I've noticed these past 2 years, I've been really eye-opened to the amount of corruption, to the amount of string pulling, to the amount of really crazy people on both sides. So we talk a lot about the left because they don't try and mask theirs, at least the like very extreme radical left, like those protesters or the people who protest me, which like psycho.
And Gaines has built a group of understudies. Former UK swim teammate Kathleen Wheeler is an ambassador for Gaines' foundation now. Both conservative women's groups that Gaines were a part of and her own group were on hand last fall when members of the Roanoke College women's swim team held a protest press conference after a transgender woman student athlete petitioned to try out for the team and then later withdrew her petition. That prompted the school to adopt the NCAA's then upcoming ban on transgender women a year early. That ban, by the way, has been tabled again as of this current academic year. Now, 7 members of the team are part of the lawsuit. One of those members was then junior team captain Lillian Mullen. She qualified for the NCAA Division III Nationals in the 100-yard backstroke in 2024. She finished 33rd. Oh, by the way, the number of transgender women in her event and in the entire meet, 0. Kylie Eilons is probably the most decorated athlete in this lawsuit. The collegiate swimmer was part of 2 NCAA champion relay teams at North Carolina State. She's a 31-time NCAA All-American and a 5-time Atlantic Coast Conference champion, and a current ambassador for the Concerned Women for America. Rekha Georgi, formerly of Virginia Tech, was one of 2 members of this group who were in the same event as Leah Thomas at NCAA's in 22. Georgi finished 17th in the 500-yard freestyle. That was the event Thomas won a national championship in. And after the NCAA's, Georgi wrote a scathing letter criticizing the NCAA's trans inclusion policy. Now, prior to her college career, she was an Olympian. She swam in the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio, representing Hungary. The same Hungary ran by anti-LGBTQ strongman and American conservative darling, Viktor Orban.
In Hungary, we had to build not just a physical wall on our borders and the financial wall around our families, but a legal wall around our children to protect them from the gender ideology that targets them. Family ties shall be based on marriage or the relationship between parents and children. To sum up, the mother is a woman, the father is a man, and leave our kids alone. Full stop, end of discussion.
One of the youngest members of this group is perhaps a potential future star, Arkansas junior track athlete Ainsley Erzin, who's considered a person to watch for the 2020 Olympics. Now, she's originally from Iowa, and in high school she was to running and soccer what Caitlin Clark was to basketball. She was also a vocal supporter of the anti-trans legislation signed by Iowa Governor and noted Trump Republican Kim Reynolds. She's also the daughter of Todd Erzin, who's a co-producer and presenter on the Steve D Show on the conservative Blaze television network. And he's also known for a well-shared anti-Thomas rant back in 2022.
Help. Well, over at the University of Pennsylvania right now, here's what's happening. There is a guy jumping not only in the pool and destroying the girls' race times, their records, but also taking his naked body into the locker room as well.
The rest of the group are active or former student athletes. Two of the remaining group are choosing not to make their names public, but one other person has made herself quite public, at least to right-wing centered media.
When the first article came out about Blair being trans and basically saying, don't tell Blair's story, if people ask about it, it's not your story to tell, no comment, like it's probably best if you don't make a comment. And with that being the first meeting, no one really made comments about it. We all just kind of left. And it was just this feeling of like, what about us? Like there's 18, 19 other women on this team that are having to deal with this and the backlash, and then also having to mentally go through the fact of finding out that this is a man we're playing with, and that it's connecting all the puzzle pieces of why Blair played so differently.
So did you feel safe in playing like with Blair on your team? Like I assume you kind of scrimmage, I don't know what the word is, against one another in practice and so on. Did you feel like you were safe?
Oh no. I mean, I think it's noticeable now for anyone that can go on, like our team has access to film that you can go watch for practice. And you can just see girls the entire practice having to dodge out of the way of a swing. So like just in that video that you showed, we're not getting slammed in the face.
Brooke Slusser is the captain of San Jose State's women's volleyball team, and she's their leading setter. She's also joined this lawsuit September 23rd after teammate and former roommate outside hitter Blair Fleming was outed as allegedly being trans by the anti-trans media source Redux last spring. Again, Fleming has not publicly stated her gender identity at all and has played Division I college volleyball for the last 3 seasons. Slusser has remained on the team through this and through the subsequent forfeits by 5 teams in the Mountain West Conference. The conference and the NCAA have remained numb and silent through all of this, and from all accounts it looks like they will remain so. While this group of 19, led by a scorned swimmer with an axe to grind, pleads their case loudly. When we come back to Transposition Sports, shout-outs, a campaign update, and a remembrance of someone near and dear to my heart and many others. That's coming up next, but first a message from the angry gay grandpa. Get your Kleenex ready now.
So maybe I'll start a little bit softer. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine.
Dad?
Before you say anything, I just want to apologize for what I said this morning. I've been doing a lot of thinking. If you want to change your name, if you want to wear a dress.
It's a skirt, Dad.
Skirt? I don't know the kind of support you need, but let's get you some for all this This transgender stuff.
Wait. Are you serious? Dad, what is this?
Oh, this is me supporting you. This is me saying I love you. This is me not losing you.
Love you, Dad.
Love you. Holly.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Elsewhere in sports, a shout out to Haley Davidson, also known as the hardest working woman in golf. Last week, she was slugging it out at LPGA Phase 2 qualifying school in Plantation, Florida. Now, the Scottish-born, Florida-based golfer is trying to be the first transgender woman to earn an LPGA Tour card, and this year she got closer to the goal. A strong performance in Phase 1 in July, but she tied for 95th last weekend, falling short of the final 35 she needed to finish to head on to the final round of qualifying school in December. Nonetheless, she said, quote, via Instagram, "I've been told I should still have good enough marks to gain Epson Tour status to get in a few events next year, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Since if the NCAA changes their policy at the start of 2025, any and all status I earned will just be taken away." She might have fallen short this time, but there's one thing I know about Davidson. She'll never quit. Campaign 2024 news. We go to the polls on Tuesday. Former high school and college wrestler turned MMA hopeful Mac Beggs is mounting a legal challenge against Texas Republicans who've been using his likeness in their anti-trans ads from his high school wrestling days when he was forced to wrestle in girls' competition due to Texas state regulations. The deliberate nonsense is part of the GOP's continued push to make trans girls in school sports a monster movie. Among those who have partaken in this includes Republican U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, currently in a tight race with Democratic challenger Colin Allred. Beggs said to Lone Star Live Tuesday, quote, "I'm not afraid of my name being known. I'm not afraid of my face being plastered everywhere. What I don't appreciate is my story being told falsely and me being painted out to be something I'm not." This is just one of the many examples of the continuing anti-trans nonsense, brought to you by the Republicans.
Transphobia for a stronger America.
For real, these ads are annoying. And a lot of people are starting to talk about them, but notice whose voices you're not hearing from in all this. The very people who've been the targets of it. Now, last week, some members of the big media have shown some trans people talking about these ads and why they're bad. In one case, Raquel Willis was on the ABC News streaming service. In another, Montana Representative Zoe Zephyr was on MSNBC in the middle of the day. But notice who's not talking about this and hasn't. No major network news show has given any significant airtime to the thousands of pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislation we've seen on the legislative docket the last 4 years. And guess who else isn't talking about it either?
We called the Democrats and they said, quote, "We'd love to help trans people, but it costs too many votes."
I've talked about it a little bit more. Now, granted, I understand electoral strategy. And prominent voices such as Aaron Reed, while still critical, are still behind the Harris-Walz ticket.
I was one of the first to report in early 2023 that trans people would be Trump's #1 target in 2024. As you can see, that's clearly been the case. He spent more money on anti-trans ads than ads on immigration, housing, and the economy combined. When Harris was chosen, I watched her closely. The Biden administration was not flawless on trans rights, and I often criticized it. But not a single federal anti-trans law passed during his presidency. He managed to defeat 50 anti-LGBTQ riders in the budget bills. I'm convinced that Harris will continue this record and nominate judges that will rule to protect our rights for years to come. One of the decisions that gave me comfort was her nomination of Walz, who made his state a safe haven for trans people. Then, in the final week of the campaign, She and Waltz were asked no less than 3 times about trans people, and they didn't throw us under the bus, unlike Allred or Sharon Brown. Waltz passionately defended trans kids on Glennon Doyle. And then Harris said that federal law requires medically necessary care for incarcerated trans people, and lambasted Trump for spending $20 million targeting us. With over 1,000 bills introduced targeting transgender people, undoing the harm that Republicans have done will require a strategic and sustained effort. The path forward depends on nominating justices who can help reverse these laws. Under Harris, we could see them reversed in 4 to 8 years.
I hear, Aaron, but there's another side to this to consider, the fear. And it's a fear I share. And the reason I'm fearful and frustrated because I've seen what's happened in 2024. I saw LB 68 in Ohio. And I heard Ohio and Michigan state legislators getting together to plan a final solution at their own Von Z conference. And Aaron Reed first broke this story. And yes, I've seen bills all over the country intensify and some of them pass. I've seen sycophants emboldened to go after kids at a ball game. Odessa, Texas has a $10,000 bathroom bounty out right now. And along the way, I've seen people going in on the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. Children, young people. Do we have to show you the booing at the Oregon State High School track meet again? And we've heard from parents who are affirming their children and the desperation and anger they feel.
When the athlete ban was first introduced, she was the only single one trans female athlete in the entire state approved to play. There have been 21 girls in 8 years. Why are we here at 10:30 at night? Why? It makes absolutely no sense to me, and I do not understand it. And as a taxpayer, I'm livid that my tax dollars are being spent on this. My child spent 3 years of her life begging for you all to listen to her and please treat her as a human being. I don't know what good it's done. Thank goodness she has graduated. Did she go anywhere in Ohio? Absolutely not. She won a $10,000 Vax to School scholarship that she refused to use because she cannot stay here. It is not safe for her here, and she doesn't even want to come home to visit.
Mina Zilch's anger and fear has been ringing in my ears from the moment I first heard it, along with the pleas and cries of so many others. I know this, when I walk in that voting booth on Tuesday, November 5th, I walk in there knowing that this vote is my life in the balance. So understand this, cisgender America. If the trans people in your life are feeling the tendency to scream right now, this is why. Finally tonight, flowers for a dear mentor of mine who's now gone home.
My name is Bubblicious, Miss Tia Lynn Waters, currently out of New Haven, Connecticut. I am a performing trans woman of color, drag performer, and I am a activist by necessity. But I'm also here showing that as a trans woman and a drag queen of color, I can be out in public and we are no danger to anybody, as much as the far right likes to say we are.
Tia Lynn Waters was a kindly black trans woman in New Haven, Connecticut. She had a loving heart for her community and a fierce passion for her art, on the canvas and on the stage. She was also known to us as Bubblicious, a drag performer for nearly 4 decades and among the founders of the ballroom scene in Connecticut. A scene today that is unsung but fierce and competitive. Don't believe me? Take a look at the Connecticut queens that have been on Drag Race recently. But she was so much more to LGBTQ folks here. She was a staunch advocate, especially for the youth, and she was a loving mother for an entire state that truly was her house.
I'm happy that we have made strides in our community, but we need to have more. We have laws to stop what's going on, but until people take it upon themselves to police their friends, their family, letting them know that those jokes aren't jokes anymore. Okay, they tend to lessen what people are doing to our black and brown community There should be no more babies on that wall.
Tell it.
There should be no more babies on that wall. Most of those children have not passed 40 years old. Okay, I'm pushing 60, and then people look at me as an elder. I'm not that old, goddammit. I'm just still here. And because I'm here, I speak out. Because I'm here, I do art. Because I'm here, I make myself known. So anyone who comes after me knows you can make it to this age. You can do it, but we just have to protect our babies.
Many of us, this reporter included, were among her children. Waters died Monday at age 56. But let it be known that Bubblicious will live forever, and her work is now ours to do. Tia Lynn Waters truly was a mother. And there were many moments in my own journey where she gave motherly encouragement. One that stood out was after a dance performance I was in called Transbodies 2 in 2019. It was after the show, and I was really proud of my performance. Me, a baby trans, still finding their way through. And there's this icon, this legend, coming up towards me, lovingly put a hand on my arm and said, "Young lady, I see you, I've noticed you, and you're starting to hit your stride." For me, as unsure and insecure as I was, it meant a lot hearing that from her. Rest in power, Bubblicious. We shall continue to keep your flame burning bright. For Transposition Sports, I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb.